animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal intuitive, sensitive animal communicator, essentially, and a Reiki practitioner. And this, more importantly, is Pearl Cutts. He is my 23-year-old soul bird and sidekick, my co-host, who never misses an episode. Right now, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, he is trying to get on my lap to roost because it is time for his afternoon nap. Doesn't that sound wonderful? For those of you who are listening to us on your favorite streaming podcast service, you'll just have to imagine this. Maybe feel his calm and relaxation. Let's Talk to Animals is it's a blog, it's a podcast and a vlogcast, if you will, that's all about all things animal communication. We're trying to de-woo it, if you will, demystify it. How does it work? Who can do it? How do you get started? What to look for in an animal communicator if you'd like to invite an animal intuitive to work with you and your pets, and helping you to connect with talented and compassionate communicators all over the world who are doing amazing things to help heal our planet and help bring people and pets closer together. Today, we have Elaine Garley here from Animal Bridges, animalbridges.com. So excited to have Elaine on our show today. She has a lot to offer. She works in a lot of different modalities with animals and also with people. Right? Because there's always a people component to any work we do talking with animals. So Elaine, welcome. So excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
Yay. And so what we're going to do, and this is kind of something I always invite guests to do, is just, here you are, you have a wealth of experience. You've been doing this work for quite some time, but rewind us, if you will, back to the beginning, and just share a little bit about your path. Like, how did you realize you could talk to animals? How did that unfold for you? And what was that like, trying to figure out, if you will, because our brain always wants to be involved, in how you could start to share your gifts with people and pets?
Sure. Well, actually, I'll go back in time and then I'll step back a little further as I tell the story. I was a project manager for one of the national phone companies, US West. And one day my husband came home from work and he said, "You have to call Dawn at work because her dog has a brain tumor and she was going to euthanize him the next day." And he said, no. He wanted to live. And the reason was that his brother in a life, we don't know how long ago, had a brain tumor and he wanted to know more about it. So she told me this and she gave me the name of the animal communicator, who at that time I was living in Minneapolis. And this, I will say, this was about 16 years ago. And so I called up the communicator because we were having problems. We'd just done construction on our house and our dog was no longer sleeping with us at night. And so she came over and did a communications. And we also ended up talking about energy and a little bit. She recommended I talk to somebody about feng shui because he had shown her a picture of him standing on the roof of the house. It was a 2-story Tudor, holding down the 4 corners of the house and his nose to keep the energy. And it was because our house was moved there about 20 years before and was rotated from the side across the street, from it switched sides of the street in addition to being moved. So I worked with the feng shui professional and have now gotten very interested in that for my own personal use. And then I started asking her questions. Well, how do I become an animal communicator? And I mentioned that as a little kid, I had an imaginary friend, Jose, and actually we were married and I was about 5 years old at the time. And nice. I kept getting him in trouble. And so she said, well, as kids, we could talk to animals. But we were about 5 or 6 were told that, no, you can't, you're just being silly. And so I said, okay. So I then took, and I also said that there are certain people in my life that I was psychic with. In college, my roommate from college, this is the early 70s, I had said to her about 2 days before, I haven't heard from Mike, a guy I knew from Israel who was living in Israel, and we'd been dating on and off. And she came in the next day. I wasn't in my room at the time, and she put down the old overseas mail envelopes and put it on my desk with a note on it. And it said, if this is from Mike, I don't even want to hear about it. Sure enough, the letter was from Mike. And so I would do that with my mother and my brothers. I would pick up stuff about them, even though I didn't, they're very left brain. So I didn't share with them that much. So I decided, okay, I'll take the class. And the first class she started, immediately I started picking up words. And I was quickly going into full sentences. And I just went on like that. And the others in the class seemed to be struggling and accepting what they were hearing. And I was just hearing or seeing, and I was just hearing things. So fast forward a little bit, I took a class with Echo Bodine, who's an international psychic out of Minneapolis. Her whole family are psychics. And it was like a 16-week class about using your intuition. And she had said, she was going through the different ways people receive information, the clairs, as she called it.
Uh-huh.
And she said, if you receive, and there's 30 people sitting there and metal folding chairs in this small room. And she says, if you receive pictures, be very careful that you let your soul interpret them rather than your ego. Well, immediately out of my mouth, I said, shit, I got it easy. And the group just cracked up because I had been whining a little bit about how I wasn't getting pictures. I was only getting words. And then I realized, wow. So the way I receive my information is I get a running conversation just like the two of us are having here now. And I literally sit at my computer and type a transcript. It is the only time I do work over the phone is when it's end of life and somebody is trying to decide if it's time to help their animal across Rainbow Bridge. Usually, since I have all my clients' names in my phone, if there's a sniffle or tears, I know who it is, and I give them their quick answer of what they want to know. Is it time? Is it weight? Whatever. So I do get the running words. Over the years, I have picked up pain and emotions. So I have been known to, I connected with a cat whose person had said to me, I don't know whether to take her to the vet or not. And I said, well, let me talk to her. Well, as soon as I did, I got a sinus headache, and I knew it was not my sinus headache. And so I told him, this was fairly early on in my journey. I said, instead of, don't you dare say that you've talked to an animal communicator. This was about 15, 16 years ago. I said, just innocently ask the vet, could it be sinuses? And sure enough, they put her on antibiotics. I've also recently, in about a year or so ago, a friend's puppy who was about 9 months old would run every time she picked up his harness. And so I talked to him, and immediately I felt in the center of my back, like I was not adjusted. I go to a chiropractor, so it didn't feel right. And then on my left side, my ribs were just screaming. And I don't call myself a medical intuitive because I can't tell you the organ. I can tell you where on my body it is. For me, my right hand, my left hand is the left front paw. My left leg is the left rear paw, and it's rare that my sides get messed up. So she then took her puppy to the chiropractor, and he did have an adjustment in the center of his back, and his rib, one rib on the left side was out. But I couldn't tell you which one or how many or anything.
Sure.
So that is how I get the information. I also pick up the emotions. Often when it's near end of life or when they've crossed the rainbow bridge, tears will start flowing down my face. I will sometimes in other conversations just start laughing or smiling. Yesterday I was talking to a client's dog who's about 12, 13, and they just got a puppy. And so he was telling me how excited he is that he can teach the puppy all the things she needs to know. And I had this big smile on my face. And so that's how I pick up stuff. My biggest, and so after I talked to her, I've the initial communication I had with the animal communicator, backing up in time again, I fortunately got laid off from work. In the meantime, up to that, I had been already planning to do Tellington T-Touch, TTOUCH method. I had just finished up my 2 years of training for animal companions and was certified in that. And so I thought I was going to be doing T-Touch all the time, hands-on working with people. Little did I know that my primary business would be the animal communications, which then has led me to other things like healing touch for animals. And you had said you do Reiki. So I will give my quick description. Reiki, you use universal energy, and you have some techniques, procedures you do. The difference is the healing touch for animals and healing touch for people. You know, Reiki is the ancient energy usage. Healing touch was developed, I'm going to guess, in the early 60s, 70s, by some holistic nurses who also knew Reiki and different energies, and they started to make it techniques to work in the hospitals that were compatible with patients and medical world. So there are techniques like ultrasound and laser. If you think of ultrasound from the medical area, like a big view area, possibly breaking up energy or viewing it. Laser, where it's a pink finger point connection. And so then one of the instructors from Healing Touch, she was certified in the Healing Touch program, and she, Janet Macon, who was the founder of Healing Touch, had Carol Comator develop Healing Touch for animals. And Carol can see energy, and she put together the program using the people information and using it on the animals. So that's my story. So it's all come together there.
It's pretty incredible. And I love, you are so easy to interview. Like, you literally you anticipate and answer. Maybe that's the psychicness, and you anticipate and answer the questions before I even ask them, which is awesome. Because it is important to recognize that we have all different kinds of modalities that we can use to work with animals, and different communicators and holistic practitioners are drawn to different modalities. And I believe it may be a function of what the animals and their people who are drawn to us are needing. What is also really interesting to me is how clear you are about how the information comes to you and about how it works for you to do this work. That is one of probably the biggest, how do you say, stumbling blocks or challenges, opportunities when you're brand new in animal communication. Actually, on my website, animallovelanguages.com, I have a 5-day free animal communication camp, and it goes over 5 of the different ways that many of which you mentioned, that information can come to us from animals and also from people. But what's really key to pick up for those of you who are listening today or watching and you're brand new to animal communication, or you're just animal intuitive curious, or you're just kind of wondering if it's already happening to you, or you're building your skill set, is that we do tend over time to develop kind of a default way. It's the easiest way for us. It's a pathway that just seems especially clear and open. And that's also what's cool about creating a community of fellow animal intuitives, is because sometimes we get information from all different kinds of sources, and when we put it together, we learn more about these abilities, and we learn we can receive different shades and different nuances of what an animal wants to share. And so as you're listening to Elaine talk today, really think about do I sometimes feel like words just pop into my mind and I didn't say them? Do I just feel sometimes a pain in my body, or I just feel concerned about my animal and I really can't pinpoint why? And start to ask yourself, could it possibly be that I am actually receiving communication from an animal in my life? So Elaine, you've taken all of this information, and I love that it sounds like you came into this world and you were so open. Your channel was open, your heart was open, you were willing to engage. It sounds like your husband was also interested and willing to engage. And so, can we talk a little bit more about kind of, how you developed the way that you work with people and their pets, because we all have to go through that. We all have to decide,
Right.
we have to tell our clients how we work and what,
Right.
how we can best serve them. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your journey. We've heard the first piece,
Right.
and here you are. What happened in the middle?
Well, and something I want to add to this is it's interesting that it was my husband who connected me with the animal communicator, because, well, he knew I was a big animal lover, as he is, but he's an electrical engineer by training. So,
Oh, wow.
so for him to say, Elaine, you need to talk to so-and-so, that's pretty amazing,
Big
and
deal.
that, if you go back 16 plus years, it was like, okay, fine, but so he has gotten used to me on this journey.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
One of the biggest things I will tell people is trust yourself. Don't question it, just trust. And there was one woman I remember in one of my Healing Touch for People classes that she spent an hour getting her body grounded to do a healing touch session. And then some of you may know of Kara Gibbons, but Kara one time in an interview said to me, well, Elaine, how do you ground yourself? How do you prepare yourself? And I said, I don't know. It just happens. Now, when I'm working with clients, I do have some tuning forks that I clear myself every time. I also have an energy ring that I use, but I cannot tell you physically or logically how I clear myself. It happens. I'm grounded. And it's been that way for a very long time. Another thing I wanted to say, at one time, I was every single person who's an animal communicator will be sucked into the world of lost pets. And I mean, literally sucked, because you want to help, you want to do everything you can. I finally realized that because I didn't have the pictures coming to me, I was not as helpful to pet parent who lost their pet. I can give them techniques of things to do. I can work with my pendulum and a map and give them areas where the pets are. And I then worked with a friend who she saw great pictures. And so between the two of us, with me with the map and her, we found every single animal, even the one that had deceased. But we both got to the point of realizing we could not be paid enough for the work we were doing.
Yeah.
At least she and I felt that. I was being in the middle of the night, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, start talking to the animal. I mean, it was constant. You're working with pet parents that are desperate. They just want information. And finally, the two of us said, we're no longer doing lost pets.
Yeah.
If you find that's an area that you love and you want to help, but it's something that is satisfactory to you, do it. If you're getting upset that you're spending too much time, that your weekends are being shot, that you're being dragged down physically, energetically, emotionally, don't do it. And it's the first time I have said that in public, but
Wow.
I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's too draining for me, and I cannot and will not do it. I will give them techniques on how to, I think this one works, is put the dirty litter box outside the front door. You know, they'll come home. Cats, I know, don't go far. I had one cat that was lost and the people swore the cat was outside. And I said, did anybody see the cat walk out of the house? And they said, no. I said, you check behind everything that's leaning against the wall, whatever. It turned out the cat was stuck between a headboard and the wall.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. I just don't do lost animals. If you don't feel as if you can do it, you're not comfortable, don't make yourself do it.
Yeah.
You know, I am also very comfortable with end of life. Well, it's jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the big things I learned with working with the animals and doing animal communications is it changed my view of death. And to me, last year, my brother passed away, and yes, there was the grief, but he was a scientist. And I explained to him what it would be like a little bit to pass over, because he was very concerned. And so I talked to him a few days afterwards, and he said, you're right, you're right. And then, so I had a friend who does a lot of angel work, and she checked with him, and the first words he said to her was, Elaine was right. Ha. So it was like, okay, confirmation, message received, you know, and still, I still do have discussions with him now. But it has changed how I feel about death. It's not, yes, there is a loss in the physical world, but there is still a connection. And one of the best books for that is, oh, shoot, The Something World of, oh, God, I can't think. I'll try to remember the name of it. Okay. But it's a great book on death. So that's where I was going. And one other thing I wanted to add, you know, backing up a little bit, in my journey of how I really got into healing touch for animals, Amy DeLong, who you've already talked to, Amy and I met in her first class of Tellington Tea Touch, and I was literally drawn across the circle of 25 people to her at lunch break, and our friendship started there. And so we would have practice sessions after we got certified to be sure we were doing the techniques right and all that. And Amy had this brochure on her kitchen breakfast bar, and I kept picking it up, putting it down. And the third time she said, just sign up for the damn course. Well, it was the healing touch for animals. So if things come into your life, listen to them, Don't second guess them, do them. And because of Amy, I have learned a lot about essential oils and aromatherapy from her. She's my number one go-to on what to do with it, because I was introduced to essential oils where you just put it right on the animal. None of the safety rules that Amy does. So I'll put a plug for her if you're
She's
interested.
phenomenal.
If you're interested in any aromatherapy work, check her out, because she has a great class that she's starting and on it too.
Absolutely. And here again, I love how very clear you are and very intentional about, sharing what you do and feeling into what feels right versus trying to figure it out and thinking about it in your head. That's another key stumbling block, challenge, opportunity, however you want to frame it for newer animal communicators. As a newbie myself, and of course I haven't been doing this work nearly as long as you have, and Amy for that matter, and most of the people that I interview for Let's Talk to Animals, and yet pretty much from day one my mantra has been just ask the animals, just trust what they say. It's like we're having a conversation, and it's not about getting it right. It's not about perfection. It's no different than walking up to a person, whether you know them or you don't, and asking a question. You expect to get a reply. You expect to get, an honest reply. It's the same framework for communicating across species boundaries. It's just our mind. I'm a huge Star Wars geek, so please, those of you who aren't into that series, please forgive me here, but it's like, do you remember the scene in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke is studying, on Dagobah with Yoda, and he's able to levitate like a rock, but then he goes, his spaceship sinks, his X-wing sinks, and he's like, oh, it's just too big. And Yoda says, and that is why you fail. And then just proceeds to, whoomp, and the whole big ship just comes out of the water. And Luke's looking at him like, how did you do that? And he's like, the same way I levitated the rock. And so it's kind of like these innate abilities. And again, I'm going to go back to how open you are in your channel, that taking the mental obstacle out, dropping back into our feeling, sensing body, trusting the sensations that we're getting just the way we trust the thoughts that come in. And frankly, the sensations and the words that just drop in are a lot more trustworthy than our minds most of the time. And I also love how you very consciously were aware when Spirit was inviting you into a new connection with another communicator, another person. I mean, when I interviewed Amy, she talked about how, she does communicate with animals, but it happens in a different way for her, through the energy as she's working with an animal and their person. And starting to create, that's exactly what I was talking about, a little bit earlier, create these communities where we can practice together. I have a friend I often, when she works with animals that are lost or missing, since you mentioned that, and she'll ask me, she'll send me a photo or information and say, do you get a sense of this animal being in body or across the rainbow bridge? And I'll just give her my sense, and it's like, and vice versa. I can ask her to tune in. And this is just a way that we keep our trust levels high. It's a way that we stay in community with one another, because animal communication does feel like so amazing when it's first happening. And you're like, this is so cool. If you're a Dr. Dolittle fan, or you're a Star Wars geek like I am, the Force is real. And then it can get serious, and I in fact, those of you who are watching or listening who are really interested in doing work with lost animals, animal tracking, that's a whole kind of a separate discipline within the greater umbrella of animal communication. I encourage you to listen to Nita Gomez's podcast here on Let's Talk to Animals, because she is somebody who exemplifies passion, like exactly what you were saying, Elaine. She loves it. Like
Mhm.
everything in her background has lined up to where she does, the tension doesn't bother her. I'm much more like you. It's like, I take on other people's energy so easily, and it can kind of, it just the urgency of the work, it doesn't necessarily flow with how my life is flowing at the
Right.
moment. It doesn't feel like my sweet spot. It's okay. It doesn't mean I can't do it. And I have assisted friends who have missing animals, and we have had success, but it doesn't mean that you want to hang out a shingle and specialize. And you don't have to do anything except listen and literally ask the animals, you know, where am I perfectly placed? How can I best be of service to you and to your people? And trust what you receive. And I really want to encourage those of you who are watching and listening, and you're just, you're struggling through that phase that so many of us do, especially now that there are so many animal communicators, so many different courses to take. There's so many different paths that you can go. Let's just not worry about any of that. Sit silently in meditation for 5 minutes a day and just invite in whatever shows up. Just say, give me some direction, give me some guidance. Highest vibration animal communication guides, spirit guides, angels, just show me the next right step, and keep it
And
simple.
right. And something I'll add in, like Amy and I, for years, has some seniors. I have already gone through, and now I'm back into a 1.5-year-old puppy. And so I will call her for like a client and say, what do you recommend in aromatherapy from here? And then she will call and say, will you check in with her senior to be sure that she isn't overriding it because of her emotions. So we work very closely that way. And so there is no competition. And I remembered when I started in the field, and I kept hearing there is no such thing as competition. And I'm going, well, roar. And somebody and I sort of got in this set too, because she thought I was overstepping my bounds. And I'm going, yes, I won't actively go out and, like, if I will, like for Amy, I will say, do you want to work with this person or should I continue? And she goes, why don't you continue? And if need be, because she's in Minnesota still and I'm in Arizona, she goes, well, then I will make an appointment with them. But, we work together. So find somebody that you can trust, that you feel very comfortable, that you can do that. And to me, like you had said something and I forgot where it was, but anyway, in the conversation, I just yesterday talked to a cat, and the response I got from her pet person this morning was, oh my God, reading this over was like I was reading the story of my medical history for the last year.
Interesting.
I haven't had a chance to write back to her yet to say, yes, animals mimic and mirror you what's going on in your life. So like during COVID, there were so many puppies that were just, I had a COVID puppy. He wasn't left alone as much as we normally would. Plus, we're both semi-retired, and so we're not going to work for 8 hours a day. But with the whole pandemic, the last 2 years, it's thrown it up where now there are so many dogs that are poorly behaved because they never got training. And unfortunately, they're being surrendered, because the people didn't do what they should do. They just, oh, they're so cute, So what if they just chewed up everything? So there's a lot of, I feel as if my number one job is helping the people, but I support the animals and I support what the animals say. If an animal is saying that they don't like their food, I will often pick up my pendulum and start asking questions of, can they eat chicken? Can they eat beef? Whatever. And I will say I think the problem is these foods, I also remind them I am not a vet, but
That's
this is,
important. Mm-hmm.
I tell a lot of people, I am not a vet, but this is what I am sensing. And fortunately, there are more holistic vets out there now
Yes.
who will listen to information than previously. So, but my number one support is for the animals. And I have a client who she admitted to me that she is super stressed and just really, really stressed. Anyway, their daughter is getting married in Europe this summer, and they have a blind greyhound who is 8 years old. And she was thinking of euthanizing the dog because the dog is not used to being with anybody else. So I told her who to talk to in Minnesota, who does, she has a company, Pets Are In, INN, and she homes the animals in people's homes. Unlike Rover, you have people who are out there saying, I'm a dog person, I know everything, I have a dog, where she actually has very qualified people. And the woman, after she heard that and she talked to the person in Minnesota, has made an overnight trial stay. And she is no longer talking about euthanasia because she had no solution to what to do with her dog.
Well, wow.
And
I
she
don't even know what to say. Oh my goodness.
She was referred to me as from another client who lives in her condo. So you never know where the stuff is going to come from.
This is true. This is true.
And it was all I could do was to keep my anger tempered. And I literally said to her, you mean you're going to euthanize her? Because, I said, there are solutions. And it was like, oh, there are. She was so into, and which is, as animal communicator, you can get into that type of, I can't do it. There is no solution. It's life. There are solutions. You just have to be willing to listen to them.
That's such an important point. And, sometimes it can feel very private, or it can feel like nobody really understands. I mean, I feel like we're kind of in the saltwater taffy place where we used to be, it was just kind of soupy and everybody was like, animal communicator. Okay, let me go find somebody else to talk to. We're kind of moving towards the light where it's like, interspecies communication is constantly going on all around us. I mean, our whole planet is talking to us right now, asking for help. And right now we're kind of in that middle phase where, some people are really open, some people are less so, but it is always a good idea when you have questions, challenges, or you're just personally very, too close to a situation to invite a more objective third party to the conversation. And where I think it's really important to say, I'm not a vet. Of course you're not a vet. You're a communicator. It's a little bit more like a therapist, although it's not that either. Right. But there are some nuances that make it really wise and brave to invite a communicator in just to confirm, or to just, I always tell my clients and my students, when you're faced with a situation where you feel like you have either a rock or a hard place, option A, which sucks, and option B, which also sucks, look for option C because it's always there. But sometimes you need a little bit of help. You need some brainstorming, or you need to hear from the animal, and you need to hear through another human who's really there to help support you through this stress period, and help you to see your way forward with fresh eyes and new energy. I love that you touched on earlier how sometimes you can feel the symptoms or the dis-ease in your body. In fact, because our dachshund did that before I got him to a holistic vet for acupuncture and chiropractic, he would run away. I could not believe it when you were sharing that particular story. I was like, oh my God, our dachshund totally was doing that, driving us crazy. He loves to go on walks. Why would he run away from us when we were trying to put his leash on? Well, it turns out his middle back was out. So there are so many things that, and, like you, I tend to get a lot of symptoms in my body. And so it's really important, I feel like animal communication helps ground us as communicators, as pet parents, in our bodies more. So we're feeling more, because we have to start to sort out what is mine and what is a message. And that's one of the biggest gifts, and I always like to kind of wrap up these podcasts, these vlogcasts, if you will, by talking a little bit more about, how has talking with animals changed your life, and what how can people connect with you, whether it's through, and I'm just going to make a plug here for both of us. I hired animal communicators for years before I ever had any inkling that it was something I could do. I actually was like one of the people that loved woo and weird. And I was like, gosh, that's just the coolest job ever. I wish I could do it, but I just didn't think I could. And so, but having the experience of, and the validation where I'm talking to this person I've never met before, usually we're on the phone or on Zoom, is long distance, and somehow they seem to know my own animal better than I do. That is a great way to have an initial experience of the animal communication, and then kind of see where it settles within you. And if you want to pursue it more for you, or you just want to have more experiences like that, but consider reaching out to Elaine or myself and scheduling a session and experiencing it for yourself. And then also, I want to encourage you, for those of you who are listening who would like to have a little free experience, I have a 4-part free series called Intuitive Pet Parent on my animallovelanguages.com website. You can find that under Learn with Me, free tools. And Elaine, please tell us, I know when people sign up for your website, for your newsletter, they get gifts and there may be some special things, but I'd love to just wrap it up with, what is your big takeaway? As far as how talking with animals has changed your life, and encouragement to anyone who may be, a little fearful or shy, or thinking, I am the only person on the planet that can't do this, right? Because we all have those thoughts from time to time. What would you say to people to say, no, go ahead, give it a try?
I think I heard the garage door open. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I would say trust yourself, listen to what you do, and follow what you believe is the big thing. And just trust, and don't listen to others. Don't try to do what other people are doing. As I said, in that classroom of 30 people, was shit, I have it easy because I get the word. So go with what's ever easiest for you. And to tell you a little bit about what you can do, if you go to my website, animalbridges.com, and you will see a pop-up for a newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter. I don't do more than that. I also, when you sign up, you get 3 gifts. You get one for the cat lovers, you get one for the dog lovers, and then you have one for you. And
how beautiful.
The one for the dog people is what your dog wants you to know, that they desperately want you to hear. So that, and then the way I work is on my website, I describe each of the techniques I use. I often have my people, I recommend somebody who's not worked with me before sign up for the free consult, and which it's on the website. And it's a 15-minute free consult. I do not do animal communications or energy work during that time. It's more to find out what is going on with you and your pet, give you some suggestions if I can, which I usually can, and then explain how I work. That I do get send out an email, a transcript to you after the communications. Once you pay online, you immediately get a letter explaining what the next steps are. Then I send you the transcript, and I often give recommendations and with the email explaining what other steps you might want to do. And that has been extremely helpful. I work with people around the world. If you go to my blog, my favorite all-time story there is if you scroll down below the picture, there's a little box for search word, put in the name Carmela, C-A-R-M-E-L-L-A. Carmela is a dog that was recently adopted about 13 years ago, who was licking everything. And nobody could figure out why she was doing it. So I talked to her. I sent an email to the people who live like 200 miles away from me in Minnesota. They immediately called me up and said, we need to talk. They then told me part of the story I didn't know. I went back and talked to Carmela, and she never licked again. So that's a really interesting story to read.
So we're all heading over to your website right now to read that story. That's for sure.
The other one is very easy. It's South Africa. It was a cat in South Africa who was excessively grooming to the point where she was losing hair on her tail. And she told me why. And once I explained to her she didn't have to worry about the problem, she stopped. So and the life story, there's all sorts of stories in there, but those two give you an idea what a transcript is like and how I ask more questions.
And that's really helpful because there are so many different ways of working, and it's easy for the brain to get overwhelmed just trying to decide who to hire.
Right.
And so again, keep it simple. I love what you just said. Trust yourself, and just notice what's coming in and assume it's trustworthy and just go with that. So, okay, well, we all have our assignment for right after this podcast to head over to animalbridges.com, sign up for your newsletter, and do a search on Carmela and South Africa and find out the whole story, right? I feel like I'm in cliffhanger mode right now.
You're right.
So, Elaine, it has been a delight and a joy to be with you today. So appreciate your time and all the wonderful gems and the stories that you've shared. And most of all, just the encouragement that animal communication is possible. It's happening all the time. It can come in many different ways. And the only way you'll miss it is if you don't notice. So consider that your second assignment, start noticing. If you've enjoyed Let's Talk to Animals, we do these podcasts every week. It's a delight and honor to welcome intuitives from all over the world who do amazing work with animals and people. And if you have any questions, if you have requests for future guests that you'd like to hear from, please let me know. If you enjoyed it, please give us a 5-star or a 50-star, Pearl suggests 50-star review, if that's possible, on your platform, and bookmark us because we'd love to keep in touch. We are a part of your family. You are a part of our family now. And let's talk to animals together, change the world, save the planet, and create a more loving and nurturing, connected home. Okay. All righty.
Thank you.
Bye for now.